I'm very excited to get to be here in Peru. Thank you very much to the Hello Tomorrow team to giving us this opportunity. Then I have one rule for you, because I'm ridiculously excited about my job, so I tend to speak very fast at times. So if it gets too quick, just give me this sign and I'll make sure to at least try to slow down, okay? Okay? Yes, good. So, I'm here to talk about how CERN, the largest physics laboratory in the world, famous for its fundamental research, is trying to bridge the gap between science and business. Because at CERN, we don't just accelerate particles, we accelerate innovation. So let me introduce you to CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, located at the Franco-Swiss border by the foot of the Jura Mountains. This photo is taken from France, and you see into Switzerland. So you can literally walk within the premises of CERN. You can walk from Switzerland to France and back again, which is pretty cool. I want to start by taking you back to the beginning of CERN. In the aftermath of the Second World War, Europe was in ruins, including the science community. One thing was the pure material damages that the continent experienced, but in addition, most of the leading scientists had fled to America to stay safe. Now, as the continent started building itself up again, it became evident that something was needed to be done to make science become amazing and put science on the map again, also from the European side. So it was decided to create a laboratory, a platform where scientists, regardless of background, regardless of nationality, could get together and collaborate, exchange knowledge, and work together. And since 1954, CERN has been doing science for peace. Today, we've expanded. We've now been in business for 63 years, and today we count a total of 22 member states. We have about 2,300 staff positions and 1,600 people going under other personnel. Now these numbers, they cover a variety of different job titles, a variety of different backgrounds, ranging from lawyers to HR personnel to accountants. We have our own nurses and our own fire brigade. And then in addition to all these people, we have 12,700 scientific users. Now these are the people who people typically associate with CERN. They're physicists, they're scientists. However, they are not paid by the organization. They are typically paid by another research institution or by a university. And they come from all across the world. Here you see the distribution of CERN users by the location of their institute. So that means where their home institution is based. And you see most of the world is represented. Even Peru, three of our users are associated with a Peruvian institution. As for the nationality of our users, again, you have big parts of the world represented, and 7 Peruvian citizens work at CERN. Now, the research mission of the organization can, in general, be split into 4. First and foremost, we aim to push back the frontiers of knowledge. Because humanity is curious, right? That's what constantly drives us forward. And that's also what we want to accomplish. We want to get to know even more. In addition, because CERN, there's really no place like it, and I'll get back to why that is, but we are constantly dependent on our own creativity and our own innovation to be able to do our jobs, and that includes developing new accelerator and detector technologies. Then we train the scientists and engineers of tomorrow. We organize schools across the world on different related subjects, and also in-house at CERN, we do several trainings each year. And as you saw in my previous slides, we unite people from different countries and different cultures. Now, the overarching research mission of CERN is to seek and find answers to questions about the universe. And in a nutshell, we do that by accelerating particles in detectors. Now, this is our accelerator complex. As you can see, it's a complex. Our crown jewel, the LHC, I'll get back to her, but you also see the proton synchrotron there. That's been, you can't see it here, but it's been in business since 1959, so it's the oldest accelerator that's still in motion. And now the one you've probably heard of is our crown jewel, the queen of our complex, called the Large Hadron Collider. With its 27 kilometers in circumference, it is the largest machine in the world. Inside it, particles travel almost at the speed of light, in temperatures colder than in outer space, which is why we're very happy to call CERN the coolest place in the universe. Now, there's nothing like the LHC in the world. Here's a photo just to give you an idea of how big it actually is. 27 kilometers, again, crossing the border between France and Switzerland in 4 different areas. It is quite amazing. And it's a really nice bike ride, actually, to go from point to point. And there's nothing like the LHC in the world. There's no place like CERN in the world, which is why, like I said, we are dependent on our own creativity, our own imagination, our own skill sets to be able to do our jobs. Because when we want to seek and find answers to questions about the universe, no one else has the toolbox to do that. So we have to fill our own toolbox. And sometimes what we do at CERN can be transferred to society. This guy, I really like this guy because he created something that enables my shopping habits. It might have led some of you to your significant other, and it makes us able to communicate across the globe at all times. In 1989, Tim Berners-Lee, this gentleman, he wrote a paper that his CERN supervisor labeled as vague but exciting, ... That paper turned out to be the first steps towards what we today know as the World Wide Web. Some, including leading CERN scientists, said that there is no way this is going to work. I think they might be a bit embarrassed saying that today because we know that it's an essential part of our everyday lives. Now, since the 80s, CERN has increased and formalized its knowledge transfer activities. And 20 years ago, they established a knowledge transfer group. And the mission of CERN's knowledge transfer group is to maximize the impact of CERN technology and know-how in society and industry. And the core of everything we do at CERN lies within accelerators, detectors, and computing. These are the 3 pillars of all our technologies. And it sounds, it's quite okay. You have accelerators, then you have the detectors, and then you have the computing part. But these 3 concepts, they hide so much more. Our expertise areas range from cryogenics to ultra-high vacuums, from particle tracking and radiation monitoring to microelectronics, industrial controls, from beam components and radio frequency technology. But what does this, again, fancy words, what does this mean? How does this play a role in everyday life? I want to take you on a little journey, showing you 5 different areas in which CERN is currently operating. Our technologies are being used in these areas. And in addition, we're going to take a little trip into a crystal ball and look at emerging technologies for the future. Now, traditionally, there's always been a very tight link between high-energy physics and medical and biomedical technologies. It makes sense because they're all, again, dependent on these three areas of technology: accelerators, detectors, and computing. Accelerators being used to get the beam going for cancer treatment, for instance. And the particle, making sure that the radiation doses are not too high, and also making sure the quality of the beam is high enough. And then in order to analyze and monitor medical imaging, you are dependent on sophisticated computing systems, just like we are, in order to analyze our research results. Now, CERN technology is not bound to planet Earth. We can also go pretty high. And CERN technology is currently being used for dosimetry for astronauts at the International Space Station, ISS. And we are also hosting and taking care of the UN's UNOSAT program. I'm sorry. Now at CERN, we work with high voltage, extremely low temperatures, radiation, a lot of scary words, a lot of scary concepts, which is why safety is always our #1 priority, to make sure that our staff and our visitors are as safe as possible. And that is why we are constantly developing and reworking our tools and our surroundings to make sure that safety is always on top. Now, during the first long shutdown of the Large Hadron Collider, one of our technicians came up with what is now known as the Compact Universal Orbital Cutter. It's quite a tongue twister. But because in the LHC, you have a lot of pipes that are what we call awkwardly positioned, so they're very hard to reach. And sometimes there can also be radioactive components around them. Again, safety is always our top priority, especially when dealing with radioactive things. But that's why one of our technicians came up with this cutter to make it easier to reach these pipes without endangering personnel or equipment. And now this orbital cutter has a lot of different application areas outside of CERN, especially within the oil and gas industry and also at nuclear plants. Then for the environment, we try to make a little effort to make the world a better place and take care of our surroundings. And there is a British CERN spin-off company that are using CERN technology to create electrochemical sensors for water pollution measurement. Now, you know how before you can eat pasta, you have to drain it to make sure that you don't eat like pasta soup and separate the pasta and the water. Now, with these sensors, you can separate water and bacteria, kind of using the same concept, making pollution measurements more accessible and also cheaper than they are today, which is pretty cool. And in order to do that, they use a manufacturing production line that we created for one of our detector technologies. Then there's the bus concept, Industry 4.0. As I mentioned, the tunnel of the LHC is 27 kilometers long, and that's a lot to monitor, which is why we needed an inspection system. And this is TIM, or Train Inspection Monorail. It is a vehicle that travels on rails in the ceiling around the tunnel of the LHC. And it is equipped with sensors that can monitor the surroundings, the environment of the accelerator, so the oxygen level, the radiation level, and so on. And in addition, it also has infrared imaging and visual. It can also make visual contact so that we always know what's going on. And now it's being used also in underwater pipings to keep an eye on that. And then for the look into the future, emerging technologies. We have one of our most successful tech transfer concepts is MEDIPICS. MEDIPICS is a family of readout chips for detectors. And so it's been 4 different collaborations with a lot of institutes involved, dating back to the mid-90s. So they've had a long time. And they now just decided to create a fourth generation that will be able to be tiled on 4 sides. And this can create things like noise-free X-ray imaging. It takes imaging, medical imaging, for instance, to the next level. So it'd be very interesting to see what the MEDIPICS 4 chip will be able to do. So CERN technology can be used in society. But how does that happen? How does it find the way from CERN, Switzerland, and to the rest of the world? That's where the knowledge transfer group comes in. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We do license, service, and consultancy agreements, R&D collaborations. We do intellectual property management, and so on. But we are going to talk about the fun stuff. So I want to introduce you to the CERN Knowledge Transfer Fund, our entrepreneurship activities, our network of business incubation centers, and then we're going to walk through 4 different CERN startups and spin-offs. Starting with the CERN Knowledge Transfer Fund. Now, in 2011, CERN decided to create a fund where CERN researchers can apply if they have a technology that they just need that last funding to make the technology market ready. So the researchers, they file an application to the KT fund, and then it's decided who gets the different grants. And each project typically gets between 15 and 220,000 Swiss francs. I should have made that over to dollars, but I'm sure you all know how to use Google. So that would be today's challenge. The average is 90,000 Swiss francs per project, and we do 6 to 7 projects per year. And again, the accelerated detector and computing aspect comes in. The project diversity is pretty big, but again, resting on these 3 pillars. But anything from compact accelerators to medical imaging to data preservation are just some of the topics that have been treated by the KT fund. Now comes the real fun, the entrepreneurship part of things. The KT fund is tightly linked with entrepreneurship because a lot of the spin-offs and the startup companies that we have, they're actually working on projects that started as a KT fund project. And this is essentially my job in one slide. I'm an entrepreneurship development officer, and my job is to make the techie CERNians who think code is poetry talk to the business guys in suits, but also the other way around. Because at CERN, we have technologies that can be used by business. We also have a lot of brilliant personnel that they can use, but also the other way around. CERN people need to realize that business, it's not a bad word, and they can take what they learn at CERN, what they do at CERN, and bring it out to the market. Because it's fascinating if you look at it and think about a typical academic scientist and an entrepreneur. They have a lot in common. I dare to claim that the best entrepreneurs I know and the best scientists I know, they have 3 things in common. First, they're constantly on the verge of being unemployed. Scientists typically work on short-term contracts. I'm currently on a 2-year contract. Entrepreneurs, well, they never know, do they? They know how much funding they have, but then eventually that will end, and what happens then? Which brings me to number 2. They're constantly seeking funding. Scientists needing research funding to be able to do what they want to do. Entrepreneurs looking for soft funding, eventually their first clients, investors, and so on. Money talks in both worlds. And third, and probably the most important, they're all ridiculously passionate about what they do. If you go through CERN night to Sunday at 3 a.m., you will still see offices with light in them because people are there trying to solve that last equation or trying to make that piece of code work. The same as in any incubator or any startup community, you will always have those people who just never leave because this is what they want to do. And you don't leave your baby at night, you stay and you take care of it, right? Now at CERN, we have several activities to make entrepreneurship happen, and one of them are our entrepreneurship meetups. We call them EMUs for short. And we started them about 2.5 years ago to give people who are interested in innovation, in entrepreneurship, who perhaps want to do their own company, a place where they can get together, meet other like-minded people, and learn about and discuss relevant topics. So what we typically do is that we invite external people who are specialists in their areas, finance people, marketing people, so on. They give an introduction to the topic, then we head out for a beer later to discuss further on. And a lot of good things have come out of these. So people have gone on to do entrepreneurship courses in their spare time. A few projects have come out of it, which always makes me ridiculously proud because it's nice to see that what you do works. And it literally started, the first entrepreneurship meetup we did, we were 5 people around a table having a cup of coffee. And now, 2.5 years later, we have a mailing list with more than 200 people on it. And some of our EMUs gather as much as 60 people. And here we're talking like a Tuesday afternoon, people are tired, they want to go home. But instead, they come to our entrepreneurship meetups, which is really nice. Then we do entrepreneur mixers. We've done 2 of them now, and we have number 3 coming up. And what we do is that we invite people from inside and outside CERN to CERN. They're all interested in startups, in entrepreneurship. Some of them work for startups, some of them are interested in working for one. We've had some investors coming in as well. And when people sign up, they have to give us 3 things they want to accomplish and 3 things they wish to provide with. So gives and takes, we call them. And the reason we do this is that, let's be honest, small talk can be a bit uncomfortable. But when you have this, you can go like very clearly, because they get on their name tags, their gives and their takes are listed. And these work as conversation starters. Like, hey, I see you wanna create a unicorn startup. Cool, me too. Wanna exchange ideas. So that's a really nice, again, it's opened up some doors for some of our personnel that are pretty cool to look back at. Then once a year, we do the CERN N10U Screening Week. N10U is the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. They're located in Trondheim, Norway. And once a year, 40 students of entrepreneurship come to CERN, and they do feasibility studies of 4 of our technologies. So these students have interdisciplinary backgrounds. So their backgrounds range from humanities to engineering. Very few of them are physicists. They come in, they spend a week at CERN, and they work. They work like crazy trying to map out the startup potential in our technologies. And it's nice because at the end they have to write a report and they have to give a final presentation. And this gives our knowledge transfer officers who do tech transfer in their everyday work life, gives them an amazing insight, a market insight that really can't be, that we truly value. Then we have something called the Port. The Port is an association that every year does a humanitarian hackathon at CERN. The contestants come from across the globe, and they tackle humanitarian challenges that are provided by the humanitarian organizations you find in Geneva. Because Geneva is really one of a kind when it comes to humanitarian organizations and NGOs. And so far you've had teams coming up with ideas on a better body bag, so the next generation of body bags, and also a way to remotely control mine detection dogs. Because when you do mine detection with a dog, the one part, so then you have a partnership, right? You have the person and you have the dog. Guess who messes up? It's not the dog. The person is always the one messing up when something goes wrong. And if you can remotely control the dog, then less of a mess up. Now, we don't just work in-house, we also work outside of CERN, which is why we have a network of business incubation centers across Europe. Currently located in 9 countries and more up and coming. Now, these business incubation centers, they specialize in supporting CERN startup companies and CERN spin-offs, because doing high technology entrepreneurship is difficult and it has some special challenges. And our business incubation centers, they help our startups with preferential access to IP. That means that if one of you would come to me and say, hey, I found this CERN technology that I want to do a startup out of this, then you would get preferential access to that technology because you're a startup company. That includes things like access to CERN, at least 40 hours of training with our technical personnel, so pure consultancy hours, and also the royalties tends to be a bit better and so on. They also help with a bit of funding. Again, high-tech entrepreneurship is difficult and then it's high risk, so getting the first money can be tricky. But by providing our startups with a bit of a pocket money, they at least get a springboard. Network access is also very important. That brings us back to how we're supposed to network through the day. I think that's very important for any person who wants to do business. Knowing the right people, both internationally and nationally, locally, regionally, and so on, is something that our BICs help our startups with. And of course, general business support. How to write a business plan, how not to write a business plan, pitch training, presentation training, and so on. So this, I hope you think it sounds great, right? Taking a piece of CERN technology and bringing it out to the world is great, but it's also a bit scary. It sounds a bit ludicrous, to be honest. Crazy. Who would do that when you can go on and get a safe job? Luckily, we have some people who are crazy enough to do that in our spin-offs and our startups. And we're highly appreciative that they do that. And one of the companies we have is TIND. TIND Technologies was started 4 years ago by a group of students who came to CERN. They did feasibility study of a library software that preserves and stores digital files. And what they found was so encouraging that they decided to go on and create the company TIND. So over the past 4 years, they've been able to gather a client list that now consists of names like the UN, Caltech, and TU Berlin. And what they do is library management software. It's pretty awesome to look back at. Terabee is a French startup company. A while back, CERN was looking for a flying inspection system for the LHC tunnel. Again, 27 kilometers is a long tunnel to take care of, and we wanted a flying inspection system to make the job easier, and also to save our personnel from from that hassle. However, we couldn't really find what we were looking for, but then we came across this startup company and we decided to do a R&D project with them. And together we developed a lightweight, highly precise, distant measurement sensor that could be applied to drones and also to other modern robotics, but mainly drones. And now we have our flying inspection system. InnoCrest is one of our latest incubatees. They're in the British BIC, and they're using imaging software, a detection technology from CERN in order to track and analyze man-made and natural gemstones, which, diamonds are always nice. And last but not least, we have Amsterdam Scientific Instruments. Thanks to CERN technology, they are able to create noise-free, high-resolution X-ray images. So they uncover things that nature has been able to keep for itself for a long time, like in this zebrafish. I would encourage you to check out their website. Just Google Amsterdam Scientific Instruments, just to have a look at some of the photos they did, because it's really, really nice to see. And it's also a great technology, and they use a CERN sensor technology to be able to do that. So summing this up and rounding everything up, just like fundamental research, business is dependent on innovation in order to move forward. And I think that society has everything to gain in combining those two worlds. And that is why I would like to encourage you. Actually, scratch that. I would like to challenge you to look to CERN for your next venture, for your next technology, for your next solution to something. Because at CERN, we don't just accelerate particles, we accelerate innovation. Thank you very much.